Is there anybody who wishes to speak during the public comment period? All righty, hearing none. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any. No updates from council? All righty, moving on to the consent agenda. If there's any questions, comments, concerns related to any item there? All right, hearing none. Moving on to our first discussion item number 9, the selection of an individual for District 3 seat on the Planning and Zoning Board. I think we have 2 candidates. One is Leslie Cuevas, who is here, and then Adam Eberhardt, who I do not think is here. So Leslie, typically we give people a chance to come up and say a little bit about themselves. You've been serving. You want to just come up and tell us about your experience serving? Anything else you'd like to share? That'd be great. Yeah, come there.
Well, thanks for inviting me tonight. It's been an interesting 3 years. I didn't know so much. So this has been, the last 3 years have really been a wonderful learning experience on the planning board, from learning all about the zoning and regulations and all that, and I really felt like I got a real good hold of that during that hurricane and the aftermath of it. My husband and I have been here for almost 40 years. It'll be 40 years in October, in the town of Fletcher. We've pastored a church there. And, reaching out to the community as we did during the hurricane, I did not know half of, even working in the insurance field, did I even know or even thought of the regulations and the rules that are in place. So that has been a pretty eye-opening, and I got a lot of good understanding at that point in time. And just to look at the future growth with everything that we have going on, I'm excited for what we see happening, but in the same sense want to see things not go so up and down, but just sort of be a level playing field to where people that are young, the elderly in our community, are all looked after properly and housed properly, and that can grow with the community, our kids. So with that, I just would like to continue on at least another 3 years so I can take the knowledge that I've gotten and go forward with it. Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. Y'all got any questions?
No, thank you for serving.
Yeah, thank
absolutely.
you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And maybe we can reach out to Adam again and give him a reminder. Maybe he can come next week and say a couple of words if he wants to, and if not,
You
then.
do that,
Yeah,
or
between
Tyler,
the two.
yeah, if you can,
He did send him a reminder. Yeah.
for next week.
Last week about this meeting, I'll send him a reminder after today.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll make the appointment next week. Thank you for being here this evening, Leslie. Thank you. All righty, the next item on our agenda is a presentation from the annual report from the Asheville Regional Airport. We'll have Mr. Liu here next week, so we'll look forward to that. Additionally, next week we'll have a public hearing for the approval of economic incentives for Project Blaze. Do we have anything ahead of time on that?
No, just your ad that summarizes the capital investment and jobs, and then the up to limit of incentives that you potentially pay out, that went out on April 1st. So Christine advertised it, because we have to do it 10 days in advance, or at least 10 days in advance. So those components of it, it's a little over $1 million in real improvements, over 5.1 million in personal property, so like machinery and equipment, and then 33 new jobs, and then a little over 5,000 in potential incentive payments. So,
Wonderful.
and Brittany will be here
Next week.
to share any more background, as much as we can, since it's under,
Sure.
Project Blaze, to keep it confidential.
Sure.
Until we have the incentive, until the announcement, and then the incentive, and then the
Right.
potential incentive agreement.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments? All righty. Next discussion item I put on the agenda is the discussion on resolution in support of HCA leader Sam Hazen to visit West North Carolina for a meeting to discuss HCA on our most recent Land and Sky Board of Delegates meeting, the Board of Delegates unanimously passed this resolution that's in y'all's packets. And with that resolution, they asked us to take it back to each of our communities. So everybody that was in the Land and Sky Board of Delegates meeting is supposed to take this resolution back to their communities. And the ask was is to pass a resolution that's similar. Essentially, this resolution, well, a couple of things. One, HCA isn't here in Henderson County, but I would say probably serves a lot of our residents. They're essentially a major healthcare provider in West North Carolina. They've repeatedly been in immediate jeopardy, which is the most serious designation that CMS can give, and that includes Medicaid and Medicare funding because of that. And they're the only level 1 trauma center in our region. And if we want to pass a resolution with similar language, I can draft that up for next week. And essentially, we're going to draft, essentially, if we decide to pass it, I'll give it to Mayor Kopoloff, who's the mayor of Brevard, and the chair of the Board of Delegates for Land and Sky Regional Council. And they want to send this resolution, along with any resolutions that are additionally passed from other communities within the region, to the CEO of HCA and ask him to come down and engage with the stakeholders here in West North Carolina. So if there's any interest in that, we can put that on the agenda for next week, and we can change the language to however best fits us in Fletcher. And I think that's all we got from that. Any questions, comments? How do we feel about it?
Basically want the CEO to come down here and discuss their issues and stuff like that.
Let-
Absolutely,
let-
they need to.
Accountability.
Yeah, they need to be held accountable, but
Yeah.
I think you can move it to the consent agenda, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, we can move it to the consent agenda. Is there any language in there that y'all want taken out or added in? I thought the language in there as is was probably fine. We could just change it to Fletcher.
Yeah.
Okay. You all okay with it? All right, we will move that to the consent agenda then.
I'll make a note of that, and what I'll do is I'll work with it sometime tomorrow, and I'll just send it to you, so since you sent it to me, let you look at it, and we'll go from there.
Okay, and then after that, we pass it, I'll email it to Mayor Kopoloff of Brevard, and she and Nathan Ramsey, I guess, are putting it all together in a packet.
Okay.
All righty, sounds good. Thank you all for your support on that. Item number 13, the resolution imposing state legislation that would place limits on local property tax authority. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. You may have heard before I put this on the agenda about a House Select Committee on looking at property tax reduction reform. And essentially what they're looking at doing is changing the law as it pertains to how you all set property taxes, and really not essentially just setting it, but it's any increases from year to year. And we've never historically had any cap on it. There is something in the general statutes about the tax rate going up to a really high rate, like $1.50. There's something in there already about that. But they're taking a hard, serious look at putting some restrictions in place to limit how any property tax increases could happen from year to year, which is a big deal because it's your only source, local taxing power that you have that's under your control. Anything else that's tax-related, I know fees you control, there might be some general statute limits on that, but property tax is it. And anything else you want to do that's tax-related, you have to go through the General Assembly. So it's something you control, something you're accountable for, something that really impacts the ability to fund services and keep pace with that and try to limit impacts on service costs as it supports ability to pay cash for things instead of financing. You know, there's just a lot of benefits. And then again, you know, the accountability of how much of that's going up falls back on you as the local elected officials, you know, rather than the General Assembly, other than what constituents might share with legislators. So they reported out of that House Select Committee last month that they want to get legislation introduced that would put in place a constitutional amendment that would basically give them authority to limit property tax increases in one of three ways. One being like any limits or caps on value increases, because there's really two main components, but here's the three things they could do, is putting limits on the value, how much the value goes up from year to year, which typically only happens about 4 years for us because of reval. The tax rate, which is the other part of the formula. You got your value and you got your tax rate, so a limit on the tax rate increase. And then the third would be limiting how much the levy can increase from year to year. So we don't know the specifics, how this is going to come out, but if it appears on a referendum and passes, so they introduce legislation and puts it on there, I mean, it's going to come across most people who don't really understand how local government operates and how their local services can be really
Impacted.
They may not see it in the first year, but the long-term impact could be significant. So there's a lot more to this. So, I mean, I'll take the time to talk to our legislators about it, but, you know, you all need to speak to them. You can get them on the phone or meet with them or email to let them know the potential impacts. And just for your reference, I did a couple little calculations in there, and the resolution speaks to, you know, it particularly impacting public safety services. So for most local governments, majority of our expenses is going to support our public safety departments. Of course, we contract for fire and rescue, but police department's internal, but a large portion of our tax rate goes to the fire department. So it's 44% of our operating budget is going to public safety, police and fire. So it is a significant portion. And hopefully, if we're going to care about local services, it seems public safety garners the most attention. Of course, this could affect parks and rec services, planning and zoning, public works, which our residents value. Their, you know, garbage collection, recycling, things like that. So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of surprised they're tackling this. We know, and no insensitivity to people's ability to pay their property taxes. We know that's a big deal too. And this last thing I'll share on this is for Fletcher, we don't go up on our tax rate very often. I know we have a budget coming up and there's some things in there with the fire department this year that they're trying to get caught up on and do. But typically from year to year, we're not adjusting our rate. And on reval years, we either come back to revenue neutral or close to it. So you still could have a tax bill increase, but it's significantly reduced because we're lowering the rate. So that's been the story for Fletcher for a long time, and not multiple rate increases. And so I think that needs to be conveyed to our legislators too, because this thing's going to affect all local governments, all the municipalities, all the counties across the state.
Yeah.
And there may be some stories where multiple rate increases and then reval happening has put a particular
Yeah, I wonder if it's-
hardship on people.
I wonder if it's sparing off of what's going on in Buncombe County. I know that.
Oh, yeah,
the spike-
to be sure.
Yeah, you've probably seen that all
Yeah.
over different
Yeah.
places and everything else, is
Yeah.
the rates and stuff. I guess they probably, folks has probably contacted their local officials, and, because I do believe, I agree with you 100%, I think we do very well maintaining our taxes and everything, but I keep hearing people in Buncombe County worried because they're 200% increases and everything
Yeah.
else is unaffordable.
Well,
Yeah.
it's, not just, I mean, there's other counties too and other municipalities, I think larger than us, that maybe perhaps have this issue, but,
Yeah.
I mean, to have a constitutional amendment for this, you know, if they want to do something local for Buncombe or Mecklenburg, whatever, it is what it is. I don't particularly support that either, but the constitutional amendment. Across the board impacts all of us. There's going to be some real unintended consequences if this continues to go through, so, I think this should go on the consent agenda, completely fine with this. I'm concerned. And if this does make it to the ballot for a referendum, and, I'd have some real concern, because I would have some real fears that this will probably pass through. And if it does, we need to be having another conversation, because it's not going to get changed, about some expanded uses of taxes that we can have locally, because we're pretty limited in that capacity now. And so if that's the case, then us and other places, ever does become, space where we need to raise taxes, but we're limited by that capacity, we need to have other spaces where we can raise revenues, because again, our services are going to be impacted, and folk of Fletcher are going to feel it.
Yeah, I mean, an unintended consequence of this that they probably haven't thought through is, we don't have a solid waste fee, and we provide solid waste services through Public Works. A lot of localities have, in addition to their property tax, they have a fee for solid waste services, and the reason we've been very fortunate to not have to do is we have a pretty broad tax base, because we have a fairly significant amount of industry here, a lot of manufacturing industry, and that's helped with that broad base to keep the rate down and not have to consider it. And you might, at some point, you might need a solid waste fee to help pay for it, but that, if they do something like this could push that much further along. And of course, the last thing, the devil's in the details. We don't know, no one's really articulated, okay, it's going to be a 5% cap on this, or, it's, some other states have done this, like Massachusetts and California, and some ones that have really had some high property tax increases where they put statutory limits on it. So, we need to help communicate that y'all have been responsible in handling this without excessive property tax increases. So, anyways, I just think we need to put that out there. I recommend that you do and
I agree.
lobby on this.
Are we comfortable with this going on the consent agenda?
I'm good with that.
We'll move to the consent agenda. And thank you for drafting this up, Mark, or whoever drafted it up.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, and moving on to item number 14, the request for express design of key intersections and road extension in support of town center development. Mr. Manager.
So I've talked to you about with their re-engagement with Lewis Real Estate Group and them articulating, would we help? Hopefully we can get to a new deal or proposal and then, negotiate a developer agreement. But one of the things they were very concerned about was the transportation improvements that could come out of this when they apply for their driveway permit and whatever the development is, and they have to do another traffic impact analysis. So Tyler and I set up a meeting with DOT, it was the French Broad River MPO. We had two people there, Tristan and another staff member, and then Steve Williams, I believe it was, from DOT, to talk about transportation improvements, see what they might be thinking is coming down, and then, what can we do to kind of get the analysis up to date about like intersection improvements to try and get ahead of if we got a deal back in front of them for town center development, how's that going to impact, what's going to be required. So we had a long meeting with them. You've got notes in your packet after my memo in there about kind of the things we discussed and next steps. And so essentially we'd be analyzing these kind of key, or asking DOT to do this again, the key intersections that are close or would impact town center development. So, Howard Gap and 25, Fanning Bridge, 25, Cane Creek and 25, kind of gets outside of that limit a little bit. Maybe there might be some looking at St. John's in 25 and all the way down to Old Airport in 25. Then the other thing was extending Old Cane Creek Road here where it ends south of Town Hall to extend it down to Howard Gap to connect, yeah. So for them to do that, there was one option called this express design where we can get at DOT's expense them to review it and get a preliminary cost estimate or a ballpark on what it would require. But we have to go through this, and Jim knows a little bit more about this being on the MPO, yeah, with the transfer.
It's become a utilized tool across the region to try and get ahead of problems and
Yep.
address issues
Yep.
and try and get everybody on the same page and
Yeah,
help get some of these projects pushed through
Mhm.
that need to be done.
yep. So, thank you. So we try and get this submitted as part of MPO's, their prioritization process, which is basically getting it in there as a project to be reviewed. And we're hoping if they do this and we get some cost estimates and we know what some of these, like, let's just say in a perfect world, ideal improvements would be to, and we're talking about traffic flow on 25, and there's already issues there that need to be addressed. But if we encourage this mixed-use development, it could compound that. And DOT is often in kind of a defensive mode or coming back to, in their words, I'll say one staff person, what makes people the least mad? that we, and so they've tended to put probably more onerous or more extreme requirements based on developments. And what can we do to kind of tone that down and get ahead of it? And we did talk about traffic circles or roundabouts at maybe Fanning Bridge in 25 and down at Howard Gap in 25 as a part of it. So if you all are comfortable with this, we could, bring that forward to get that submitted. I guess it has to go through the Henderson County TAC.
TAC.
Yeah, the TAC
TAC.
first. So Jim could support that. I can come to the meeting too if you need me to be there for that. But, and Tristan Winkler, who's the contact in there, helped bring that forward too. But that would kind of be our next steps on this, and they have a deadline. This would be way before their deadline to consider this express design option it's like 2027, but we want to get this in a lot sooner. So that's kind of what we're talking about. If you all
Just making sure everybody understands, this is only a design concept phase.
Yes.
It's not work actually being done, it's just showing us what the options could be for that corridor there to help with the Lewis Group and the town center design.
So they wouldn't do anything until after the submittal in fall of 27?
Oh, no, that's the deadline. I think we could get it in, well, I'll double check with Tristan, but I think we can get the process started sooner. I believe if we get it in now and get it
Get
through
it
the
on the list.
prioritization, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, and that's a good question. Yeah, we don't want to, if we can get that in sooner, hopefully we don't have to wait till the
So-
deadline on that for
Okay.
prioritization.
Okay.
But
It's
we
gonna be
might,
crucial to the development of that land. I mean, it's got to
Yeah,
be done.
yeah.
We don't have a real option, but it's got to be.
My only concern being on the MPO and seeing budgetary figures for the state DOT, just because it gets on the prioritization list, doesn't always mean it's gonna get done immediately. It's just on that prioritization list, and then they have to look at available funding, and with everything we've been through with Helene, it's really impacted a lot of projects in the region,
yeah.
13 and 14, so.
But we have a better chance of this getting done a little more expeditiously
Yeah.
because it's just design and cost estimates. It's not funding construction, the putting it in place. And the whole, again, part of the reason we're trying to do this is if we have that information in hand and it winds up being improvements that they could sign off on to get, driveway
Yeah.
permits for the project, then if the developer is supposed to pay for that, and let's say as
Yeah, they can
part of
pay
a
for it.
public-private partnership, we know what that is, and if there winds up being a town contribution to,
Yeah.
get the cost down and make it profitable to them and something we like to help move forward, it helps to do that. There's just not, the money is so tight right now for funding construction.
A lot of projects are actually getting funded through the legislature and not through the federal government because so much money's tied up with lane repairs and stuff. It's
Yeah.
falling back on the state.
And there could be, the money, the similar grant we got, we did the Highway 25 corridor improvements, the clock tower and the sidewalks, brick pavers, all that's, the lights that were put out there in 25, pedestrian lighting. That was with something called a STPGA. It's a Surface Transportation Direct Attributable Block Grant, but it's an 80/20. A lot of the, meaning 80% grant, 20% match. A lot of that money's been getting tied up in it. We probably wouldn't be able to get a hold of that as potential funding, construction funding source until 29, 30, he was saying.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's why, at least if we know the cost and the developer is bearing the brunt of it, we can negotiate something and get that hopefully going further along if the town's a partner in some of the infrastructure improvements on this.
I think that sounds appropriate to me.
Okay.
Do this.
At least we'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help us with the project. You got any other questions, comments there? You all feel good?
Yeah, and I might have to bring something back as more formal to submit it, but maybe just by motion next week, we can do this,
Okay,
if y'all approve a motion.
sure. Sounds good. All right, if there's no other questions or comments there, we'll move into your town manager's report.
Okay, that was fast. So request for assistance from our legislative delegation. So, I set these meetings up and usually a couple of you participate where talk about our legislative priorities and then projects. And been trying to do that with our state legislative delegation, haven't heard back from them on a good time, but we've submitted all the information to them. On the congressional side, our Senate and U.S. Representative, we met last week with Kai Lauder from Senator Budd's office and had a good meeting going over, our priorities and then our project lists. And he had some suggestions on some potential grants, a build grant for maybe help with our Greenway initiatives, and something with EDA, is Economic Development Administration, about, it's a bit of a stretch. Maybe we might be able to parlay something with the library project. So we'll chase that down if there's a possibility, but so we had a good meeting with them. I'm working on getting one set up for Senator Tillis' office, so with Robin Ramsey, and I guess circling back with Representative Edwards or Congressman Edwards' office, the same thing. But it wasn't all that long ago that we met with them, Connor Brown from that office. So the other thing, I mentioned that letter, that I just kind of got a request from Congressman Edwards' office out of the blue to get a letter of support for our sewer projects over here on those 3 streets off of Fanning Bridge Road. And submitted that back on, I think it was like March the 19th. But I'm going to follow up with them to see, did they have a particular funding source it was that they were going to tie that to, if they could get an appropriation or something to a grant. But it was encouraging to get that, just kind of, hey, we need this in right now. So I'll follow up on that. So that was kind of it on the legislative delegation side, unless there's any questions. Budget update, we're now getting into kind of crunch time here on our revenue estimates. Heather's helping with our calculations and kind of our key ones. And I should have that roughly about the middle of this month. We'll get our last value estimate for the county, from the county for property taxes. So with all that, middle of April should have a balanced revenue projection. And then on the expense side, health insurance, trying to determine what we're going to recommend for continuing with health insurance. Could be a biggie this time. And on the personnel expense side, our salaries, what the final estimate is with cost of living adjustment and merit in there. And then I'll balance the budget and then, present a recommended budget to you at the May, I think it's 7th, thank you. May 7th meeting, budget meeting. So that's kind of our next steps. I don't know if there's any questions along the line here or input you can share now or next week or any time. I know Amber, you had a couple things you were asking about, just about the process. So anything you want to weigh in on, let me know. And obviously at the recommended budget, you typically provide some feedback. And if there's something you want to adjust in there, we usually handle it there. And then the final budget for adoption at the public hearing, and there might be some tweaks or adjustments there. So based on your feedback.
Are we still aiming for that 2.8 COLA?
Yes. And, it's going to be tough, I think a harder budget to balance than some prior years. So, if there winds up being something to adjust, and I'm not suggesting it at this time that we change that, but, when it comes down to it, trying to include all these things, and my goal is always to try, some years we can't, but, earlier I was mentioning we haven't had very many tax rate increases, but that's always the goal I set out with, is to try and present a recommended budget that does not include a rate increase, which means no increase in people's property tax bill.
Yeah.
But this one's going to be tough because, just some of the requests from, I'm not picking on the fire department, but they had some substantial ones that, could, involve maybe up to a 1.5 penny increase.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we'll get through all the expense calculations, revenue, and see if I can come back with a balanced budget that does not include anything other than what I mentioned, the fire department.
Yeah.
And if I am anticipating we'll give you a heads up plenty early, so we could be thinking about that, whether you approve it or we make other adjustments, we'll look at options.
Okay.
So.
What about insurance? I know you mentioned that was been tough.
We're getting hit with some pretty large increases. So we met with our broker last week, and they presented an option at, keeping our plan exactly as is, or a version of it, Blue Cross Blue Shield, that essentially the same plan, not many tweaks to it. And it was like a 34% increase, which is one of the biggest ones we've ever had in a long time.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate because they kept us grandfathered under this non-ACA compliant plan. We hit some window years ago, we were able to keep it that way. And we've been fortunate to have either very minimal or no increase, or we've actually had some years where the premium went down. So we had a decrease in the premium. So they're going to come back with, they've already presented some options, but we do a fully funded, so you may have heard of fully funded, self-funded, which we're not a big enough organization trying to do self-insured, self-funded. even with stopgap stuff in there. So they're gonna try and bring, it's like a hybrid version in between where it's level funded, it's called. And we're waiting for that from our broker. Hopefully this week we'll get it. But yeah, that's one of the tough ones or kickers in this process. So we'll see what we get and see, what our options are to hopefully bring back something comparable or very close to what we have without a huge increase in the premium. So we have a good broker. They're really beating the bushes for other plan comparisons or different iterations of the type of plan, like self-funded or level or so forth.
I didn't know if you could negotiate for a shop out. I mean, you'd say you want a shop out and negotiate the price down as well. I know we've done that before.
We've done that before. Yeah, we'll try. Yeah.
If it brings
it's
it down
worth-
to 2%.
Yeah.
It's better than it was.
It's worked a couple times in the past. This time, I think it's a little bit harder, but yeah, we'll try for
If you throw that out
that.
there, they might just negotiate right off the top.
Yeah.
and say, okay, yeah.
We've negotiated a couple times in the past, so we'll see. Yep.
I'm hearing a lot of people are getting hit with the same thing. this
Yeah,
go around,
it's-
so.
It's a shame it's this hard, even when you're an employer that's contributing, plenty of money here to try and keep a good benefit to the employees. And not just Fletcher, but other local governments, private employers, just to try and keep some decent level of health insurance coverage. It's really tough and a shame that we can't figure a better way to do this in North Carolina or the US in general. But, so, yeah, that's what's happening with that.
Well, thanks for working on it.
Yeah, and Heather's been working real hard with her broker on it, so. So that's essentially it on the budget update. Moving on, just a reminder, we've got that pill drop and document shredding event coming up on April the 25th. So that's a Saturday. It's from 9 to noon. And it'll be in the south parking lot again, yeah. So our police will be helping with the medication turn-in, and then, I forget the name of the contractors doing the shredding out there.
I think it's Shred America.
Shred America, thank you. Yeah. And then last thing, I know we had it on the agenda last month, but the spring litter sweep, just trying to encourage people to get groups to come out and do a litter pickup day. We've had some good success in the past with people doing that. We've already had one group, they did it last year too, so kudos to a bunch of residents in Windsor Forest, I think of Meg Rossville, and she kind of coordinated it. And we, we'll provide, the town will provide the garbage bags, safety vests, if they want these picker things, we have so many of those to pick up the litter if you don't want to put your hands on it. And then we'll pick up the trash bags when they're full. So it's kind of a nice partnership with Public Works and the public to do that. And we'll try and identify roads in particular that are a little worse looking or have more litter. And remember, our Public Works staff, some of them from time to time, will go out and pick up litter too. So that helps to keep our town looking nicer. But I'll do a connect call on the litter sweep and also do something about the document shredding and pill drop. But if y'all know groups or want to organize one in the neighborhood to go do it, it's easy to do. It just takes a little time walking around there and be careful staying off the edge of the road there with traffic. So.
Didn't we used to have signs up like Boy Scout troops on so? Does the.
Adopt the highway.
Yeah.
The highway.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah,
adopt a highway,
so-
yeah, talk about that. Yeah, we don't really, and maybe that's something we need to engage again, or about there's groups like, I think Apple Tree had it on,
Yeah, they had one
some
on
part of
Underwood.
Underwood Road. We didn't do the signs, and I don't know if they did that through DOT, or if it wasn't with the town.
I'd imagine it's probably through DOT. I
Yeah.
know, near where I live, Old Hendersonville Road, Old Brickyard
Yeah,
Road.
which is
Fernleaf adopted that one pretty recently,
Okay.
and,
Good for them, because that road's usually a mess.
well, not anymore. They've been
Yeah,
out there pretty
good.
frequently, so I know they've been out there at
great.
least twice in the past couple of months, and
Yeah.
they'll collect all the trash in these yellow bags, and they leave the bags on the side of the road, and I think DOT comes and picks them up after whenever they have time to. They've done a really good job of cleaning up that road.
Good, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever we can do, and maybe we can put a separate message about adopt a highway, or, I don't know who I guess they went through DOT to get a sign.
I think so,
over there.
yeah.
Yeah, well, on a DOT road, that would make sense. We don't, they usually, when people do this, they're picking up on DOT, not town maintained. I mean, Underwood is, but
Yeah.
most of the busier, more litter problem areas that are on our DOT roads that are more heavily traveled, so,
Yeah.
yep. So, that's all I had.
In terms of the pill drop, do y'all remember Love and Respect? There was a nonprofit that reached out, or came and did a presentation. There was folks that were in recovery, and they had like this little bus thing that goes around. They reached out to me recently, and they asked if they could come to the pill drop and set up. They said they would give out whatever we were comfortable with, but that's from things like blankets to hygiene products to, I forget what the spray's called, but when folk overdose,
Narcan.
or maybe not, it was Nax,
Naloxone, I think is the full name, but.
Okay, that's Narcan, same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
and they said they would be willing to come and set up there and give out some supplies. I wasn't sure if council was interested in that or comfortable with that, or some version, but I told them I'd get back to them.
I don't see a problem.
I don't see a problem with it. I don't know that that clientele.
Yeah, I don't think so, that's what I was like, I'm not sure how much you would
Yeah.
get here, but maybe there's people that want to keep it in their cars, or, I don't know.
Or, maybe if we don't have a lot of people requesting, supplies or assistance from it, if they can at least educate maybe
Yeah, they
people
said
about
that-
it and get the word out to, maybe hand a flyer out to people, so the more people are aware of what they do to help.
Yeah, they said they would do education as well, so if somebody
Yeah.
wanted to learn how to administer Narcan, they would teach them what they wanted to learn, so.
I can
but-
see it being more of a help when we have it at the bank.
Yeah, more
Because
kind of
it's a little
front facing,
different
yeah.
clientele than what we've got here,
Yeah.
because we're kind of hidden, tucked back, and it's a little more exclusive. but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no issue, I'll tell them they can
I'm not
still come.
against
If
it,
Yeah, I agree with you.
It can't hurt.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let them know they can stop by and set up if they want to.
Yeah, I'll have to see if, when you do the message, the recorded message, you don't want it more than about a minute long.
Yeah,
So maybe I can try and get some information in there about that, at least
Sure.
mention their name and something in there, so it's, so people are aware. And we'll do it on social media
Sure.
and the website too.
sure.
Okay, great.
Sounds good. We got any other business from council? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, a motion to adjourn in a second.
Second?
Okay, a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Laughing, everybody. Call us to order.